That intro, loving it. Well, hey everyone, David Mario Smith here, and you have now tuned in to the official first broadcast, I guess, of my rotation on the Crunch, brought to you by the good folks over at PPN. And PPN is Players Production Network. That's Players with a Z. So you got to sort of say the colloquialism with a strong, players, right? But so we have four rotating hosts for the Crunch, and Rebecca's episode actually went live last week as the inaugural episode. We have Jeremy and Graham coming up next week, and I guess following week. So my focus is primarily on the digital workplace, and more so people experiences within the digital workplace. So how are people actually experiencing the workplace, and in turn, how are customers experiencing a brand, your brand or any brand? So we are people first here, folks, and people centric. Now, as a sports aficionado, I think where we are from a digital workplace perspective, it's crunch time, especially as technology silos and arbitrary delineations that we just kind of made up, right, have given way to looking at the workplace more holistically and making solutions-based technology investments decisions that are, to me, more people first and, again, people-centric. So how you navigate the digital workplace in crunch time is going to require you to know how to pivot effectively, right, in order to thrive. And one of the key investment areas, I think, in the digital workplace is networking and the health of the network and the management of your network, right, and connecting applications, devices, and people. And so it's only fitting that I bring on the fabulous and insightful Nora Guzman of Extreme Networks to talk about it. So welcome, Nora.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well,
Excited to be
thanks.
here.
Yeah, thanks for being honest. I think, no, it's time for us to make networking sexy again, right? And
It
maybe
was
some are
always
saying,
sexy in my world.
exactly, right? And so I think so. Let's show people how sexy it is indeed, and what a sexy topic it is, and at the heart of digital transformation. Don't you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think without a doubt, you very quickly realize what's happening when your network is not performing like what you need it to. So it's sexy, it's critical, it's the
Yeah.
lifeline.
So let's make it real for folks. So Nora, please tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you do at Extreme Networks.
Well, it's a pleasure to introduce myself. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm Nora Guzman. I lead global alliances and ecosystems here at Extreme Networks. And I've had the pleasure of working for Extreme here for about the past 3 years. So, in my role, I'm responsible for all of our technology alliances and our ecosystem partners. So, when you're thinking about plugging in things together and making sure that they work, my team works on kind of building those relationships and making sure that when you're plugging those things in the network doesn't go down.
Awesome. Because the network is important. You don't want the network to go down, or else if the network goes down, then our show will be off the air. Like
Yes,
literally
indeed.
off the air. No, we're really talking about connecting applications, devices, and people.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Like for real. And so, how long have you been with Extreme now?
So we're just kind of coming up on my third year anniversary. So I've been here for what feels, I mean, it's a good solid run.
Yeah, yeah. Now, no, you and I, if I could go back, we go back, gosh, to when you were at IDC and I was a Gartner, our young analyst days, a little wet behind the
Yes,
ears, naive
yes.
and so forth.
Yeah, so in the Wayback Playback Machine, and I won't try to date myself, there was a time where I did was an industry analyst for IDC and was covering enterprise networking. So if you
Yeah,
told my young professional self that we'd be kind of doing different tours of duty and come back around and I'd end up at an enterprise networking and
yeah.
working for Extreme, I would have thought you're absolutely crazy. But a lot of it kind of just shows how much stuff comes in a full circle. The network as a network infrastructure is important, and your professional networks are also equally as important.
Ooh, I love it. Go ahead now. Do the double entendre with the
Yeah.
networking. I like that. So that in terms of extreme networks, right? Obviously you guys talk a lot about the UX and CX. How is Extreme, I guess, approaching the user experience within sort of complex enterprise network solutions?
Mhm. Absolutely. So we're really proud about, the fact that we have a cloud management platform. So if you think about
Mm-hmm.
that simplicity and kind of that traditional networking person who's very proud of kind of CLI interfaces, we've done a
Mm-hmm.
lot of work and a lot of investment in our platform, which is called Extreme Cloud IQ or
Mm-hmm.
XIQ is often what you hear Extreme people refer to. So that's our cloud management platform. This
Mm-hmm.
extends over, access points and switches and really just simplifies the overall administration. So we've been really proud of it. It's been a huge part of our investment. It's a lot of things that we've done to kind of
Mm-hmm.
make it easier to onboard access points, onboard switches. And so there's just continuous investment in that. And I think if you kind of stay tuned over the next few years, you'll see more and more applications being brought in as a part of that platform.
Yeah, and is the Extreme IQ, is that how you guys are introducing in a more user friendly way, sort of AI with the networking management?
Yes, yeah. So there actually is a component to it. So for those of you who've been following Extreme Networks, you may have heard of Extreme Cloud IQ Copilot. So that is
Mm-hmm.
our entry into kind of AI ops and kind of simplifying manual tasks, adding
Mm-hmm.
AI components to it, increasing kind of that network intelligence component to it. So that is very much in terms of, it'd be also a miss for us not to talk about AI, especially with everything that's been developing. So if you add network plus AI,
Yeah.
that is kind of our foray into it. But you'll increasingly see a lot of companies talk about how to do it. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
companies that are talking about it that don't really know how to do it.
Yeah.
I say the journey is still early on, but there are things that we are definitely incorporating into our products to make it simplified. And trying to take things of how do I look at all these different screens and simplify it? How do I make sure
Mm-hmm.
that what I'm seeing is the network when the network administrator is saying network's up and running, and you have
Yeah.
folks in clinics and branches and warehouses going, I don't know what you're talking about. This thing is down. So how do you start to kind of do that remediation? And that's a
Yeah.
lot of the stuff that we're doing to kind of improve that over quality of experience and troubleshooting.
Yeah, and I like how we sort of organically introduced AI without, sort of the the usual sort of fan for it's going to change the world. But no, it's right. It's literally about how do you intelligently optimize your network, right?
Hmm. Absolutely. I mean, there's so much stuff in terms of the number of things that are connected to your network, of how do you make sense of it? How do you kind of distinguish the noise to signal
Mm-hmm.
ratio? There's a lot of things that are happening. So there's things that we are doing specifically in terms of our product set. But I think overall, Extreme as a whole is even really kind of even more committed to kind of improving that overall experience. So
Mm-hmm.
my team sits within the product management team at Extreme and in the product organization. And
Mm-hmm.
we now have an entire customer experience and product experience team. So that
Mm-hmm.
just really reinforces our commitment to improving the product, improving the interface, and simplifying it for our users and our customers.
Yeah, and so what I'm seeing, I guess, what you guys do, you're sort of bridging sort of UX and CX in networking, right? And so, how do you guys consider the customer experience beyond sort of the initial product purchase? Are there strategies in place sort of ensure seamless network deployments and ongoing support?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly an evolution. I think there's everything in terms of saying, hey, we've had when we first released our products that were called the universal platforms. So these were a lot
Mm-hmm.
of in terms of depending on the heritage of where you came into Extreme, we wanted to kind of honor that and carry that forward.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was a kind of bifurcation of are you a CLI person or are you a cloud management person, and
Mm-hmm.
having that flexibility. We're increasingly seeing customers kind of go on this cloud continuum to say, hey, from where you've been, where it's been an on premise, as you start to feel comfortable, as your organization starts to feel comfortable, as
Mm-hmm.
your workload and timing constantly kind of quickly ramps up, we want to make sure that we carry you on that journey to where you are. So you
Mm-hmm.
hear a lot from the Extreme team around Cloud Continuum and making sure that we are kind of enabling you on that journey and giving you
Yeah.
both kind of the platforms and the applications to help you.
That's good. And so, I guess with the growing, I guess, adoption of cloud and edge computing, how is Extreme, I guess, collaborating, I guess, to your role as well too, with its alliance partners, sort of to deliver that sort of unified and sort of positive CX across on-prem, hybrid, all the multi-cloud environments and so forth.
Yeah, so I mean, it's from the Extreme Cloud IQ platform. We do talk about kind of the cloud portability and flexibility. So whether you need it from like a private cloud experience to a public cloud experience. So we do have
Mm-hmm.
relationships with AWS, Microsoft
Mm-hmm.
Azure, GCP. So depending on where it makes sense for you and your organization, we provide that optionality, which is obviously key. And
Mm-hmm.
then increasingly, you're hearing not only a lot about AI, but a lot about security. So we
Yeah.
are increasingly working with security vendors as you're starting to bring in security into your portfolio, and how do you make sure those firewalls are working with your other network solutions. You'll
Hmm.
start to hear a lot more around kind of ZTNA and zero trust networking, and
Yeah.
particularly from our other analyst friends, what does this mean for SASE or security edge? A lot of those things are crashing into it, and you'll see some of the security vendors coming into networking, trying to rationalize those solutions. And certainly from a network perspective, we
Hmm.
want to make sure that we're addressing those security concerns as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess too, from I guess when it comes to CX and customer experience, and how do you guys sort of ensure that your partners are aligned with your own sort of vision? What sort is there some sort of a certification process, or how do you sort of align that? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it's all of the above. I'd say, particularly from an extreme customer base, we definitely rely pretty heavily on our reseller and distributor partners.
Hmm.
So when you have folks like Step and CDW and Converge One, they're very integral because they're usually on the front lines in terms of helping kind of navigate and pulling those portfolio pieces together.
Hmm.
So they're increasingly a part of that conversation about how the customers are purchasing it. When it
Yeah.
comes to the technology partners, when you're dealing with something like a Palo Alto or a Forescout, or pick some of your other kind of top of mind firewall vendors,
Yeah.
this is usually where my team kind of comes in and starts to really broker those relationships and say, how do we formalize this? How do we have documentation so it's not just a, hey, trust us, it's not going to break. There's something that we can point to and say, no, we
Yeah.
work together, we brought it into our labs, we have documentation, we have training. Here's how you can kind of deploy this with confidence.
Yeah. And looking ahead, what what role do you see, I guess, alliances and partnerships, sort of, your purview playing in the future of, CX, customer experience within the whole networking industry?
I think we're kind of a part of the party. There's a part of it where, as
Part of the
much as
party.
any one of the vendors would want to be kind of think that, like, oh, we're going to do a full commit or a full things, unless you're starting from a greenfield experience, but most of us don't have that privilege, you're going to be
Yeah.
dealing with kind of a heterogeneous environment. There's going to be a lot of things that you're either kind of retiring tech debt, you're trying to bring new systems on, you're trying to bring new locations on. So you
Mhm.
have to make sure of how do you reconcile all of those different pieces. So as all those different pieces come in, you don't want it to be this Frankenstein bit of, oh, maybe some bubble gum here, some scotch tape over here. You want to make sure that as you're doing your migrations, we have the
Yeah.
partnerships and that we can help kind of carry you along. So I think there's always an element of, we'll be a part of the conversation. That's a
Hmm.
lot of the reason why my team sits within the product management organization. It's so saying that, when my team is going out for alliances, it's because it's aligned to the roadmap. And it's because
Yeah.
we know that there's that build by partner model. So if we're not going to build it organically and we don't have the funds to buy it, we're most likely going to partner. And that's where my
Yeah.
team can step in and help.
Yeah, I love the you don't want to scotch them. You don't want to MacGyver your network, right? And I
Definitely.
probably lost half our audience right there on the MacGyver reference.
I will say that when it comes to the expletive moments of networks, our network friends definitely have MacGyver tendencies and are able to kind of recuperate things in ways, but you don't
Indeed.
want to have that be the only way that you're kind of remediating and doing troubleshooting. You want to hope that there's lots of other things that you've done to build redundancy, to build scalability, to build failovers, so that it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a MacGyver moment.
Yeah. And so we joked earlier about bringing the sexy back with networking, right? And you mentioned it never left. And so I guess one way for us to do that, right, is just to get real world examples, right? Where the let's if we bring the sexy back, what are the real world examples, right, of networking in action and how you guys are addressing customer pain points?
Oh, I mean, I think everything comes into kind of how are you designing your network in terms
Mm-hmm.
of from when you're standing it up, how are you doing it from kind of a greenfield implementation? So and then this comes back to, our Extreme Cloud IQ platform.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing things to extend the number of solutions that are being able to be enabled against this. And then
Mm-hmm.
another thing that I know the team is pretty proud of is that a lot of the management platforms only work for
Mm-hmm.
kind of their native solution. So you'd expect that only an Extreme Cloud IQ platform could only manage Extreme switches or APs. We do
Yeah.
have capabilities that extend to third party non purple devices. That extends the extensibility, that provides a lot more reassurance. And then, particularly from a customer experience, I don't want to have to be flipping through lots and lots of different apps. And
Yeah.
across the trade shows, you hear about more platforms, and there's lots of things about how to make that more extensible across it because screen switching fatigue. How do I know which
Hmm.
one is telling me the right thing? There's a lot of stuff that my team is working on in cooperation with my friends in product management to say, how do you
Yeah.
make it more seamless and how do you avoid some of that screen flipping?
Absolutely. And you guys are, I mean, you're pivotal in terms of the different industries that you guys are in. I mean, so we're talking from, state, local government, right, to
Mhm.
higher ed, right, the smart cities, all the way to, hey, do you realize how important networking is at your local, baseball and basketball game, right, in those big and large arenas? Again, it's sexy. If network goes down, then your fan experience is pretty dismal, right?
Mhm.
And so, can you talk to us a little bit about those experiences, those fan experiences within entertainment and big events?
Yes. So we're very proud to have relationships with the NFL. I think we're the official Wi-Fi provider with MLB and also with the NHL. So in terms of if you think about kind of that crowd experience
Mm-hmm.
and from, when shots are scored, goals are like scored, that's a big time. And that's definitely
Yeah,
when you want to go text your friends and tell them, hey, here's what's happening. You don't want the network to go down. So that's
yeah,
definitely a part of our story. And then I think everything also in terms of retail, in terms of our ability to kind of dive into your grocery store applications. If you talk about the store of the future, you hear a lot about smart carts and how do you exchange that grocery store experience. There's lots of things that our teams are working on there to improve kind of that store of the future customer
mm-hmm.
experience. Um, I think there's also just an element of saying that whether it is a small school who is
Mm-hmm.
kind of thinking about the classroom experience, and for the parents out there who had to deal with schooling your child through COVID schooling and kind of
Oh
that
boy.
experience. And
Yeah,
sorry if
yeah.
I'm triggering anybody on this one, but just also in terms of that network
Ooh.
intelligence and how do you do that? A lot of those school systems were strained because they don't
Mm-hmm.
have a huge IT staff. So how do you simplify that? We have tools to kind of help those smaller school systems to larger higher ed universities that are kind of saying that have much more comprehensive needs. So we really want to
Yeah.
make sure that we're extending it for kind of the right size, the right industry, the right experience across those.
Oh God, you did definitely trigger me. Got a little bit of PTSD on the COVID experience. Yeah, we experienced here in the household a bit of Zoom bombing, and I'm still stuttering trying to explain to the kids what they just saw, and it was it was bad. It was so bad.
I can't say that we definitely weren't responsible for that, but just in terms of you think of, you know, a lot of credit goes to public school systems or kind of the utilitarian needs of that, that gym teacher or an art teacher or someone is being
Mm,
repurposed to not just also, do that kind of curriculum, but are
yeah,
also moonlighting as maybe your network admin. Just how do you make that more simple for someone who isn't like a tried and true network person? You need to kind of
yeah.
make it a much better user experience and then make it a much more simplified experience. So that's a lot of stuff that we're doing in terms of, simplifying the applications, making it as easy for someone. And that's not to downplay kind of the technical skill, but saying
Mm-hmm.
that there's some rudimentary things that it should just be kind of plug and play and easy. But
Mm-hmm.
as you need more maturity, as you need more complexity, we will offer those to you as well.
Oh my God, yeah, I remember guy in elementary school for my kids, knowing when teachers found out, oh, you work for Gartner, I became the official networking expert, and and I was asked a bunch of stuff about networking and Wi-Fi and I'm like, guys, I'm not that kind of analyst, and it was,
I
but
mean, it's kind of the reverse thing of when, for your parents or when you're dealing with older generations, where instantly you are Mr. IT
IT,
person. How come I can't log into this? How come my iPhone or my iPad's not connecting?
yes.
Why is Alexa doing these things? The reverse generation kind of troubleshooting is also true.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. So speaking of so COVID and stuff, how did you guys actually sort of fare from organization perspective in terms of aiding your culture sort of get through it, and what did you see from your own customers sort of aiding them getting through those sort of dark years, and now we're in a post COVID world.
Yeah, I'd say from just an internal culture perspective, Extreme really focuses on a flex first policy. So in
Mm-hmm.
terms of providing that flexibility, so I'm based in northern New Jersey. Most of my team is distributed across the US. I'm not even within a commuting distance from an office. So there's a lot of the
Yeah,
flexibility in terms of our workforce that Extreme is very proud of and saying that like we want to kind of meet where people are, but
yeah,
also if you do need to be in an office space, we do have offices across. So that kind of from an employee base was huge in terms of kind of morale, retention, culture. That's that flexibility first is huge. And I think
Yeah.
because we know that, being able to kind of do all these remote logins, leveraging the cloud, leveraging those experiences are a part that kind of we live, eat, breathe this, and want to make sure our customers are experiencing that flexibility as well.
Yeah, because we're seeing, especially from a digital workplace perspective, as I've been covering the workplace, for years now. Where now the big buzzword is hybrid work, and one
Mhm.
of the big things with hybrid work is how do you sort of create equity, with your remote, or parity, I should say, with your remote, constituents, and also people who are in office, right? Because especially if you're in a meeting experience, right, how do you make sure that the remote person has the same level of quality in terms of the video and so forth, and the network, as does the in the office people. And so equity and parity becomes this interesting challenge now for organizations.
Yeah, so our CTO, Nabil Bukhari, talks a lot about the infinite enterprise. And that's that element of in a wayback playback machine, you saw kind of that disparity of if you're in a home or you're in an office or if you're not in the HQ, the network
Yeah.
degradation and the things you have access to kind of really drops off quite a bit. So, from Nabil's vision of that infinite enterprise, there should be no distinction depending on where you are. There
Indeed.
should be kind of role based access depending on what you need to do, and you shouldn't just have free reign, but there shouldn't be those kind of chasms of experience because people are expecting it to be as seamless. If you think about just the experience of coming in and out of an office, or, Dave, you remember back in the day when people say taking that call from your office and picking it up and taking it to your mobile phone and then going out to the car and the number of things you would have to do,
Yeah.
there's still some glitches when I take a Zoom call from my laptop and then try to get to the car and go home and it clicks off the home network.
Yes.
But it's a lot better than it's been. So there's things that we are working to kind of continue that, but you want to expect that experience that I can do this and it's not a lot of manual overhaul to do this. And so there's a lot of things that we're just saying from experience.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to have that mental shift of it's going to be worse or not as good as it should be wherever I am, however I'm connected, whether it be through a mobile device or my laptop or something else. I should
Yeah.
have a more seamless experience.
Absolutely, and it's funny, going, looking at, so now again we're talking about hybrid work and where we're seeing the evolution now of, sort of, we're seeing people, some companies starting to trying to mandate people to come back into the office, and we're seeing a little revolt against that. And I get it, because I think with a lot of companies, as you guys know from the networking space, they've, there's a real estate issue now, right? They have all the space now, and so how do they, begin to outfit it and leverage it, for the workforce? And what I've been seeing is people now, when they do come back into the office, it's more so with a purpose, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, yeah, we work remote, but when we're coming in with the office, let's do it as a group. And we're seeing more sort of purposeful returns to the office, rather than just coming to the office for coming to the office. It's more purposeful, and they're there for a meeting. They'll do all day. They'll rent the rooms they need to do, cater it, and so forth. So we're
Mhm.
definitely seeing that some coming back, but more purposeful. And so we're seeing companies trying to figure, okay, how do we then reorient or restructure the office, the physical space itself, to sort of cater to those sorts of working styles.
Yeah, I'd say the style of work is definitely changing, kind of the intent, and just kind of the aimless things of just kind of being there just to be there. I know,
Yeah.
the stories of the peers in the Extreme Networks in the San Jose office. If you want to see people, now it's the kind of thing of go on Wednesday, don't go on Monday, don't go on Friday. The flexibility. You want to go on Wednesday, and Wednesday is when kind of the magic happens, and you can have those hallway conversations. So there's things like that, just in terms of
Yeah.
coordination of days. But I do think that a lot of the office administrators across the board, whether it's Extreme or other companies, are definitely reevaluating how do you make that magic happen? Because there is something chemical that happens when you are together, but not everybody
Exactly.
wants to do that 5 days a week. They don't want to do that 40 hours a week. So,
Exactly.
how do you maximize the utility of that, but also create the experiences? Because I think you and I both remember a time when high wall cubicles and having that private space and trying to hunker down into a cubicle because you didn't want your call to happen and hear all that kind of loud noise was something to work against. But now people don't want sort of those physical barriers because that
Yeah.
impedes that collaborative nature of, hey, I saw you, I'm working on this. What do you think about this? walls are lowered, the physical experience kind of transcends what you're trying to do from like a collaboration perspective.
Exactly, especially with the line of work. When I first met you, we were your analysts, and I remember my days consisted of a lot of calls, with clients. And so, be talking to external people, and I needed, sort of that quiet, those sort of, high cubicles, those closed office spaces to even get work done.
As it was survival technique, right? You couldn't deal with
Exactly.
it if it was kind of an open space, but it's different now, in terms of the expectation, the norms, and then you factor in
Yeah.
sort of generationally in terms of, those before us were expecting kind of more of. I remember a joke that a previous manager told me about like mahogany row. They want real offices with stature and these
Yeah.
beautiful bookcases behind them, to moving to a cubicles, to Gen Zs in the workplace, and they want more of
Yeah.
this kind of free form nature that's more like their homes. How do you
Yeah.
reconcile all of those different things that are happening in your workspace?
Oh gosh, you mentioned Mahogany, and I remember, gosh, several years ago when sort of telepresence, remember, was this big thing, and it's like the telepresence unit or the helicopter one, right? It was like because
Well, yeah, when the
yeah,
telepresence came out, it was the corporate jet displacement was
yeah, exactly.
the conversation, right?
Yeah, and the demos. I remember Cisco demos. I mean, you had these beautiful rooms, right? Mahogany desks, and it was just gorgeous, and cameras, and everything was good. But you couldn't just buy one; you had to buy two because you had to talk to somebody, right? And so,
Someone had to be on the other end.
yeah, exactly. So you had to outfit all these offices, and it's like this again. The telepresence unit or the jet, right? Became super expensive. But funny, you mentioned the days in the office, and you mentioned the Monday and the Friday, and it's so funny seeing that play out in the daily traffic, right? So
Mm.
every Monday, traffic is easy peasy here in the Bay Area, right? Every Friday, same thing. That Tuesday through Thursday, oh my God. It is insane traffic.
Yeah, so that's the thing is like, cities are having to adjust to it too in terms of what does that mean from an experience? What does it mean from traffic? What does
Yeah.
it mean from a hospitality situation of maybe you don't have that local cafe that's open on Mondays and you
Mm-hmm.
focus your lunch hours Tuesdays through Thursdays? That changes their paradigm, and then kind of everything, the ecosystem that works around that is definitely kind of
Yeah.
reevaluating, saying, how do we optimize for what's happening today?
Yeah, and so funny. You mentioned some of like the fan experience stuff, and we talked about making sure that you see how sexy networking is, and so can you share any more of some of those fan experiences, events that you sort of helped some of your customers through their pain point to sort of delivering better experiences?
Oh, yeah. I'm probably not going to do it justice, but when we were having our reseller events in the fall, our previous CMO was talking about the Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour. Now, if any of you
Ah,
had the experience of Taylor Swift swinging through your city, you saw kind of the economic impact that she had on
she saved
that.
the
And
economy. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and
Between her
Beyonce
and
too, for that
Beyonce, yeah,
matter. Her and
between her and
Beyonce,
Beyonce, they
obviously,
saved the economy.
but if I'm paraphrasing the slide, is that he had a slide behind him that kind of showed the network traffic from, here's what's happening from the opening set
Mm-hmm.
to, hey, when does her surprise song come on? And how are you texting your friends about which surprise song is coming on throughout
Yeah,
the course? And there's some pretty kind of seminal moments. They were talking about kind of the network traffic that was happening through those concerts.
yeah.
Those types of experiences, depending on which facility or venue it was at, but saying, think of just how many times you're going to pick up your phone for specific elements through a
Mm-hmm.
concert or a game would definitely kind of, you just think of how many people were going to be crashing it at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in Seattle, I think they even said one of the dance moments in the Taylor Swift one created an earthquake. It was an equivalent because of the amount of
Wow.
dancing that was happening. So
Insane.
imagine that's also kind of just a powerful force of the fans sitting there. They're also
Yeah.
going to want to make sure that that'd be a really bad time to have your network go down and have that experience of,
Yes.
let me show you kind of this magical moment of being in a concert with thousands of people. You want to share that the number of TikTok influencers or Instagram
Mm-hmm.
influencers that are also sharing that experience, because that kind of has that groundswell effect of, here's what you can expect when this tour comes to your city. I know when I was at Beyonce at the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, I was definitely taking videos and streaming it back to my friends as well. So nobody wants kind
Yes.
of having your network not respond because those moments are magical and you want to be able to share them with your friends. And that's the beauty of kind of all of the technology evolution that's happened over the past few years.
Yeah, and see, and that's the sexy, right? That's where networking sexy. That's where it's critical because it literally becomes that lifeblood, and again, that connective tissue, again, between, the event space, the apps, the devices, and the people, and how people are actually experiencing these events and so forth.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure the network people would say like they don't get enough applause for it when the network stays up, but they sure hear
Yeah,
it when the network goes down. So,
absolutely. It's like I can't see Taylor. What's going on, right? The lights are going. I can't hear Taylor.
yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want those experiences, or even if you take the Super Bowl and kind of the Usher halftime experience, those
Yeah.
little blips from a sound experience, like you don't want that to impact it because it reflects poorly of was it the artist, was it the equipment, what
Yes.
happened. So, you want to make sure that that is as seamless and continuous as possible just because of the number of eyeballs that are on events like that.
Yeah, exactly, you're right. It is a thankless job, So after the Taylor Swift or Beyonce applause, you don't hear and give it up for your extreme, networking engineer, right? That doesn't happen, right?
Yeah, that would be a rare, rare thing. I mean, I'm sure they would love the accolades, but I think across everyone across the production stage would not get the credit for what it's due. But when
Yeah,
stuff goes down, people hear about it.
yeah. So you heard it here, folks. Networking is important. It's critical. Please tip and applaud your networking engineer at every fan event, please. So Nora, beyond I guess the technical aspects, what are some ways Extreme is sort of like fostering a customer centric culture within the organization and across the partner network?
I think it's kind of a stay tuned. There's going to be some more. So, in actually about
Mm,
2 weeks, we are going to be in Fort Worth having our customer event. So, Extreme
okay.
Connect 2024. We're going to be lining up some announcements coming up to then. So, there's a lot more to come. And I'd say, kind of, as you're thinking about the networks, thinking about kind of how can we help you on your cloud continuum and kind of
Yeah.
carry you through that journey and experience. And then, I think there's elements of feedback. We want to hear it. Feel free to reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn. We love to collaborate and kind of understand because networks are certainly not uniform. There's
Hmm.
going to be lots of different players, lots of different pieces, and we need to be able to bring them together in a nice way, in a simple way for customers to feel confident that what they're
Yeah.
deploying isn't going to bring their network down or bring their job down. That's not
Hmm.
what we live for. That's not a great experience. So how do we make it easier for them to do that?
Awesome. And so again, people can find you on LinkedIn, Nora Guzman, right?
Yes, yes.
Awesome. Nora, thank you so much for joining me. This has been fun. I think we succeeded in making networking sexy again. Or reminded people that it was sexy all along,
I mean,
right?
Justin Timberlake's back. I'm sure, if I'm feeling that kind of beat coming in my head right now. I
Oh,
don't
there
know
you
that
go.
Timberland would like that kind of dub over, but we'll take it.
Yes, that's right. JT is back. Yeah, indeed, indeed. Nora, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. And we definitely
Thank
have to do
you
this
so
again.
much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for being here. Awesome.